Check, 1, 2.
Good morning. We're going to open this sacred space this morning singing song 163 in the gray hymnal. Please rise in body or spirit. It's for the earth forever turning. Good morning. Good morning and welcome. I'm Jackie Williamson. I will be your worship associate for this service. I am 5'2" and have short hair with blonde highlights. Today I'm wearing a multicolored shirt. I'm a cisgender woman and use the pronouns she, her. This service is being broadcast live on YouTube and will be available as a recording on the UUFCC YouTube channel after the service. This is a good time to turn off your phones, or you're like me, I forget to turn them back on. For those of you joining us virtually, you may wish to have a chalice or candle available for a chalice lighting ritual. Welcome to those who are watching on YouTube, and welcome to all here at the fellowship. Each week we gather together by singing, even as we are in many different places, and whether our sacred space be virtual or live. You are welcome here at UUFCC, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter your background or spiritual journey. We know you come here for different reasons: to find community, to seek your spiritual and personal truth, to ask questions, to nurture and be nurtured, to explore new ideas. We come from different places, different religions, different beliefs, and different backgrounds. We trust you will find something that you need here: comfort, connection, and love. And we hope you will find ways to help others. If you are new here, please stand or wave as you are comfortable so that we can welcome you. No? Okay. If you want to know more about this fellowship, check out the website at uufcc.org or ask someone. We are glad you have chosen to spend your Sunday morning with us. I have much gratitude to everyone who has contributed to making today's service happen, including our welcome, decorating, tech teams, musicians, Our behind-the-scenes folks, the office, the worship associates, the board, the building and grounds, and cleaning folks. Those who are taking care of us for making coffee, goodies, and cleaning up after the service. Now we would like to have the prelude by Ryan. Wow. The chalice lighting. Today's words are from Reverend Betts Winnecke. May this flame, symbol of transformation since time began, fire our curiosity and strengthen our wills, and sustain our courage as we seek what is good within and around us. Now, as Mary Lou lights the chalice here in the sanctuary, please join me in reciting our affirmation. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our aspiration, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth and love, and to help one another. Sure.
Good morning. I have opening words for you today. They're from a philosophy professor at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, Professor Scott Hershevitz. He writes, "When my son Rex was 4, he reframed my view of religion. He announced, 'I think that for real, God is pretend, and for pretend God is real. God isn't, except when we pretend he is. Philosophers call this fictionalism. Suppose I say, Heathcliff loved Kathy. False in this world, but real in the world of Wuthering Heights. Pretending blurs the boundaries between this one and the ones we imagine, breathes life into the stories that in turn shape our own world. When this one feels like it's falling apart, religious rituals help not because I believe in the gods that inspire them, but because they remind me we persevere, we survive, we even thrive despite evil and pain. The world has been falling apart from the start, but there's beauty in trying to put it back together. If you'll turn to your teal hymnal, please, number 1028. Rise in body or spirit, and sing The Fire of Commitment.
Okay. Our Book of Life offers you the opportunity to share your joys, sorrows, and life milestones with the rest of us by writing them in the Red Book, which Robert will be bringing forward. You can also email them to the Book of Life at UUFCC.org by the Saturday before the service. Thank you, Robert. We also embrace the tradition of dropping stones in the bowl. The water symbolizes this community, and the stones represent your joy or sorrow. This is the time to briefly share that which is most sacred to you. There will be a time for announcements later in the service. Please be aware that we are creating a permanent record of these moments on YouTube. I have one, let's see, okay. Okay. Well, okay. Love to Kay and everything you have done for me. Annie and our community. Thank you isn't sufficient for all the things that she has brought to us. And that's from Kathy. And from Janet, I'm celebrating a successful surgery. In less than 2 weeks, I have less pain than I did before the refusions. Thank you for all the well wishes and support I received. Now, I invite you to come forward and drop a stone, either in silence or briefly aloud.
Hi, I have 2 stones, and the first one I have to apologize to Corey for. Sorry, Corey, I left my phone back there. Corey's not here today, and he asked me to share something that's on his mind today. It's the anniversary of the death of, I think, his mentor. Brandon Burlsworth was a football player, a walk-on for the Arizona Razorbacks. And this kid was really a nothing with no talent that was noticeable. And he worked, and he worked, and he worked, and he worked. At the end of his career in Arizona, he became the 3rd draft pick for the NFL, was signed on by Indianapolis Colts. 10 days later, he was killed in a car accident. But he's left this incredible legacy behind. So that one's for you, Corey and Brandon. And this one is, I'm back. Thank you.
My first stone is for my coworker Dina. She's the nurse practitioner at our office and just one of the nicest people I've ever met, just genuinely nice. And last week her husband, who's about, I believe, 72 or 73, they got a new puppy that pulled on him when they were walking, and he had back pain. It wouldn't go away. And in the course of the last week, unfortunately, the workup for the back pain revealed that he has lymphoma that is everywhere. He went from seemingly healthy to palliative care, and their world is just completely shattered. So if you'll keep them in your prayers. And then this one's for Janet. We're not going to let you hurt yourself. So you may be back, but you're going to ask for help and not overdo yourself.
My sister Bonnie in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, was admitted to the hospital last night. She's 90. Tomorrow is her birthday. She will be 91 tomorrow. She's been saying, I don't want to live to my 91st birthday. So possibly, unless she died in the night, she's made it. Now, she and Willie Nelson share a birthday. 1933, tomorrow they will be 91. She's had a miserable life. If she'd been more like Willie and had a little wacky weed, she might have had a happy life.
I think the last time I was up here was 6 months ago upon my mother's arrival in the area, and now she has departed this last week back to her home in upstate New York. So we spent the last 6 months living together, which has been a real blessing for me. And I just, as she's 84 years old, something I could not do with my father and his wife when they passed away in 21 because of the pandemic. I'm really glad I had the opportunity to spend so much time with her and be so close and spend these days with her. I'm very appreciative, and I wish her well.
This song that I'm putting is for William Ruiz. He's the producer from the studio, Grand Slam Studio up in New York, that does my soundtracks, and I work out of his studio up in New York. And I texted with him last week, and he told me that he's very sick. And so he hasn't been able to do any music for the past 2 weeks. So this is for him. Keep him in his prayers, and I'll keep him in his prayers, and I hope he gets well real soon so we can get back to music.
Randy, could you help me, please? Thank you. Oh, Lord.
So take my stone.
Yes, I'm. Okay, this last one is special. Only me. This last stone represents unspoken joys and sorrows in our hearts. May we hold these and each other in love and tenderness so that this fellowship may be a source of strength and comfort, courage and hope in the days and weeks ahead. Please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay, now, many of you know Sharon Whitehill as a member of our choir, the board. She's a poet and an active member of our community. Please join me in welcoming Sharon.
That was great. Thank you. So it's nice to be back talking with you again. Thank you for coming. We are all familiar with nostalgia for the good old days, the days of the past. It's called golden age thinking. It's a glamorization of the past that seems golden compared to the way we live now. That is nothing new, that attitude, that outlook. So many cultures tell stories of ancestors who grew progressively worse over time. They do so in terms of precious metals. It starts with an age of gold, which then becomes an age of silver, followed by an age of bronze, and then iron, and finally lead. Progressively worse over time. Metals degrading era by era by era. There's also a gardening version of this same idea. You see it in Genesis. Eden being a golden place, a perpetual garden, forever lost to human weakness. The interesting thing, almost abusing thing to me, is that this last and most degenerate era is always the one we live in now, in whatever culture it appears. So it's an age of lead now, or perhaps it's a ruined garden, always the one we're currently living. In the Middle Ages, for instance, the Roman Empire was held up as the glorious past. But in Victorian England, they looked back to the Middle Ages. People yearned for the spiritual and artistic purity of that time as they saw it. And how many of us have looked back to small-town America as some idyllic time in our historical past? What does that tell you? That this tendency to look back with nostalgia seems pretty basic to human thinking. That's why no political promise resonates more than the vow to bring back a time before we were polluted by everything from the worship of pagan gods to the internet. On both ends of the cultural spectrum today, there's what historians call a backward-looking present. This is a country that used to thrive in optimistic belief in progress. Now it seems to see things as worse than they've ever been before. And lately, something even more dire has crept in. I'm sure you've noticed it. It's a pervasive doomsday attitude. I've asked myself whether this is just a modern iteration of Golden Age thinking, or are we really actually coming to the end of the world as we know it? I want to talk today about two interconnected ideas that will help answer that question, I hope. One part of the answer that I'll offer has to do with how our minds work. The other has to do with the importance of taking a wider historical perspective. So, psychological factors first. There are two quirks of our consciousness that make us highly susceptible to Golden Age thinking, and to the connected sense that the world is now in serious decline. One quirk is that our brains pay more attention to negative information than to positive information. We tune in more to the negative news than to the positive news. And that leaves us with the impression that things are worse than they've ever been. Maybe things are worse than they really are. The second quirk is that overall, our memories of the past are not reliable. Because in memory, it's the positive moments that stand out and the negative ones that fade away fast. Let's take, for example, breaking up with your first boyfriend or girlfriend. No doubt it was wrenching at the time, but today you've probably lost the specifics. How did it come about, that breakup? Who said what to whom? When did this take place, and why did it happen? Where were you at the time you broke up? So, no longer crystal clear, is it? And yet with the positive memories, well, I can tell you this, Decades later, every detail of how I got together with my husband Jim is perfectly clear in my mind. I can tell you what he said and what I said, and who said it first, and what time of day it was, and the color of the couch we were sitting on. It was white. Positive details, far more vivid than the others. That's memory. The fact is that in our day-to-day lives, we pay a lot more attention to the bad news all around us than we do to the good things. So it can seem to us that things are falling apart. And again, that's opposed to our memories of how it used to be. There, the negatives have been blurred out by time, and mostly the good things remain. And that's with the exception of a traumatic experience. Those memories are very clear and vivid, no matter how much time has passed. So what I'm saying is with the exception of trauma. If you put all of these factors from brain science together, you can see how it works. Your general memory filters out the bad parts, so you recall life as being much better when you were young. The petty worries of that time have long since disappeared. Whereas what worries you today, it's right in your face, and the negatives keep adding up. In psychological terms, it's called negative attention, positive memory bias. Negative attention, positive memory bias. In lay terms, the golden past versus the terrible present or the scary future. In poetic terms, as Yeats so memorably wrote, things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. Wonderful lines. But there it is again, that negative attention bias. Things now seem bad. So that's the psychology of it. But besides being aware of how our minds work, we need a second awareness to keep our overall perspective in balance. And that's the perspective of history. Looking back even briefly over the centuries, you can see that life is better now than it's ever been. Modern medicine, housing and sanitation, better diets, microplastics notwithstanding, literacy levels, civil liberties, democratic norms. Think about it. In the 1930s, there was the Great Depression. In the 1950s, kids got polio, Jim Crow was rampant, gay people hid in the closet. In the 1970s, we faced runaway inflation and lines at the gas pump. As recently as those 1970s, poverty, child mortality, crime rates, and deaths from major diseases were all much worse than they are today. So history also tells us what we all worry about, war and discord. They have always existed. Do you know how often human beings in our 34,000 years of recorded history have been at peace everywhere in the world? 268 years in 34,000. Only 8% of the time that it hasn't been war wherever you look. I like what Joseph Campbell said about the same thing. When we talk about settling the world's problems, he says, we're barking up the wrong tree. The world has always been a mess. We're not going to change it. Our job is to straighten out our own lives. So realize that current conflicts are hardly a modern invention. They have always dominated the so-called golden past. It's fine to look back, and we look back to the best of the good old days or the best of our historical moments. But let's also, for all of our problems, let's be glad that we're living right now in this moment. So that's my dual corrective for doom and gloom about how awful the world has become. To remember the way our minds work, and to note the improvements of history. But now I have a confession, and you might relate to it too. It's my fear, and this verges on belief, that what humanity faces today is not only unprecedented, but really has brought us to the brink, to the beginning of the end. I don't need to list all the reasons, you know what they are. And I guess that most of you have the same or similar kind of fears. You may remember a few months ago when I dropped a stone and announced that my 10-pound great-granddaughter had just been born. And I was thrilled. I still am. But what I didn't say that day was that underneath my delight was a shadow thought, a shadow question. How can I celebrate bringing new life into a world that's flooding in one place and burning up in another? Well, now that I've cheered you all up, let me apply my own two-pronged advice at the beginning of this talk, and that is to remember the way our brains work and to keep history in mind. Let me apply it to these doomsday fears that I've just expressed. The first thing I'll point out is that the fear and dismay that I have described is not unique to us at this time in 2024, or this place, hurricane-prone Florida. There are various terms for this. It's been called apocalyptic anxiety, doomsday thinking, extinction panic. And it's a common historical phenomenon. It occurs over and over again throughout our history in response to rapid cultural change that happens so fast it's alarming. Various kinds of change, perceived as bad more than not. That can be technological change, scientific change, geopolitical change. The specifics differ, but the message is always the same. And again, it's a message as old as the ages of gold, silver, bronze, iron, and lead. I don't know why, but knowing that comforts me. It calms me down, and it gives me a more realistic perspective. So does the fact that what we're feeling right now is surprisingly similar to the mood of the 1920s. People then had just emerged from a devastating pandemic. People then also faced unsettling technological change. And just like us, they had their defeatist predictions. Theirs was about automation, how machines would take over and do completely away with human labor. A terrifying prospect, though we might smile at that now. Doomsday predictions in general, from the biblical prophecies of the Old Testament to Nostradamus to Y2K, remember that? They have been consistently wrong. Furthermore, not only have we been through these anxiety cycles numberless times, but history shows that they slowly diminish as we assimilate them. They're brief, lasting only until we gradually metabolize all of the changes that alarm us, all of the threats that we perceive. We metabolize them into the body politic, if you will, and they slowly fade. There's another fear from the past that's arisen again today that I'll mention. It's that we're facing the demise of democracy. Well, again, let's look at some history. This is according to a very persuasive article I recently read. It's about the 40 autocratic leaders in Europe and Latin America since the start of the 20th century. 40 dictators in those countries since the 20th century. Of those 40, demagogues all, only 7 managed to overturn their country's democratic system, and those all were under conditions highly unlikely to occur here. The fear of such a danger is certainly valid. The point here that I'm trying to make is that our thinking about them, as we do, the way we think about them, we too often ignore similar previous threats to the status quo that never came true. Ooh, I'd like to meet the status quo. Please understand that I'm not saying that there's no cause for alarm. I am saying that these anxieties can paralyze us into giving up hope. They also feed into what I believe is a soul-killing view of human nature. And that's the fundamentalist Calvinist notion that we are so depraved at the core, we human beings, that our violent and selfish desires must be held in check by strict governmental restrictions and moralistic laws. What a far cry that is from our own aspirational model of human purposefulness and the value of life. In fact, the most concise, the best summary about human nature I've ever come across comes from a 2007 magazine article from Time magazine by a journalist called Jeffrey Kluger. What I love about this passage that I'll read to you is that it captures the very best of what we are as a species without minimizing our emotional worst. Here is what Kluger wrote. If the entire human species were a single individual, that person would long ago have been declared mad. The madness would lie in the fact that both the savage and the splendid can exist in one creature, one person, often in one instant. We are a species that is capable of the most dumbfounding kindness. We nurse one another, romance one another, weep for one another. Ever since science taught us how, we willingly tear the very organs from our bodies and give them to one another. And at the same time, we slaughter and torture one another. That we are the highest and the wisest and most principled species the planet has ever produced, that is our triumph. That we're also the lowest, cruelest, most blood-drenched species is our shame and our paradox. That's a wonderful example of paradox. Two contradictory perspectives, both true. Once again, I do not make light of concerns about critical world issues. The threats we face are urgent, they're real, and some are entirely new. But when you're tempted to give in to cynicism and despair, remember how your brain works. It works against maintaining a positive outlook in favor of this rose-colored past. Remember how far human culture has come over time in making life, for most of us, better in general. And think about how all the dire predictions and prophecies about the future have failed to come true. Those are the psychological and historical perspectives I think it's really important to maintain. So how can we do that? How is that even possible, given our negative attention, positive memory bias, and given the tidal wave of bad news that comes at us every day? It's so easy to feel we're not doing enough, especially those of us, maybe most of us here, who lack the stamina for the kind of strenuous political activism and environmental activism that seems called for. Personally, I've never been very good at what so many UUs do so well: letter writing, phoning, petitioning, fundraising, UU the vote, marches, rallies, running for office. And I've often felt guilty because all that's so important. It's all essentially essential to do. It's all good. But I like to think it also counts as a kind of activism to use my particular skills in place of these typical methods. Is that rationalization? Maybe so. Even so, writing is what I love doing and what I do best, not just writing poems, but preparing these talks that you all seem to benefit from. And so I wonder, can you find the metaphor in that for yourself? Something that you do because it brings you pleasure and assistance to others. Something you do not because you expect certain outcomes, in my case, being rich and famous as a writer. Don't do it for that reason. You do it for its own sake. I think activism means showing up. And for me, that means facing a blank page every day rather than marching or protesting. Finding my purpose in putting words on that page, no matter what happens to them after I do. Using my abilities in a way that has meaning for me and for others, whether I'm published or not. That's the best way I know to stay mentally healthy during an admittedly difficult present. So I say, go ahead, count those non-typical things that you're good at as a form of political or social action. Add to these the reminder over and over again that the contrast between this chaotic, negative present and the positive, peaceful past, that's a skewed perception. That is your mind playing tricks on you. Really, it's all interconnected. How ready your brain is to fix on the negative news and its golden view of the past. A past with all its wrinkles, and I have to add, mine too, yours too, all our wrinkles smoothed out as they were in the past. Americans may be floating on a pessimism bubble, as David Brooks wrote in a recent column, but we still have by far the strongest large economy, the most innovative technical centers, and also the mental and spiritual resources brought by millions of striving immigrants. More talent in America today than ever before, end quote. And that's all the more reason, I think, to counterbalance our pessimism. Pessimism about the future, by recalling that these current fears are nothing new, that human beings have survived doomsday panics all through the ages, and that I, for one, do not want to give in to that fundamentalist view of human nature as inherently, hopelessly, helplessly flawed. I don't want to give in to that. I want to work to keep that outlook at bay, and I do it by holding in mind those words I quoted a few minutes ago, that we humans are capable of almost dumbfounding kindness, that we do nurse one another and romance one another and weep for one another and willingly tear the very organs from our bodies and give them to one another. That is so much more productive, that worldview, than pining away for a past that never was. So much better than stressing about a future that no one can know. Keeping all of this in the front of your minds, that's what helped me, and it helps me, and I hope it helps you. It keeps me from giving in and giving up. It echoes a trust in human potential that's expressed in our affirmation every Sunday. It keeps me alert to how important it is to a balanced perspective to understand history and science. And it keeps me from not giving in to the one-sided thinking that leads to despair. Because we know this. Love is still and enduringly real. It's still everywhere. It's all over the place. It's right here in this room. Just look around you. If you look at each other, you'll see it. May it be so. Oh, yeah, now I'll announce this.
Okay.
Please rise in body or spirit for hymn number 108 in the gray hymnal, My Life Flows On in Endless Song.
Thank
And before I forget, thank you, Sharon. That was terrific, as always. In the tradition of Unitarian Universalist, congregations exist because of the generous support of members and friends. It is our privilege and our responsibility to ensure the health and future of this fellowship. We have several ways you can give. In the baskets being passed around, with the Venmo app made to UUFCC offering, you can mail a check to the office. And if you are here for the first time, please don't feel obligated to give. You are our guest today. We'll now accept the offering. Thank you, Brian. Woo! Woo! Thank you for your support for this fellowship. We appreciate your financial support. Now it's time for the life of the community. Now is the time to highlight UUFCC's events and activities. The back of the order of service has this week's calendar. Also, the weekly update has a calendar, so today we can check that as well. Today I have the following announcements. Herb, would you like to come up? Not really, but he's going to.
Morning. Caring, displaying kindness and concern for others. Look to the left and to the right of you and around this room. You are probably seeing someone who could use an ear or a shoulder due to a physical or mental issue. And they will most likely not tell you about it. The usual, everyone has problems, why should I burden you with mine attitude. The Caring Committee offers an alternative. We are not gossips, we are not intrusive. We are here if you or someone you know here could use a card, a call, an email, or a visit to say that we care. The thing is, as much as we could care, we can't, and we won't, unless we are informed. You think nobody gives a hoot about you? Well, try us. In confidence, drop us an email at caring@uufcc.org. A couple of additional points. Those birthday cakes every month, that's us. Celebration of Life assistance, that's us. We need more members on the Caring Committee. We meet every second Wednesday of each month at 10 a.m. In May, it will be in person in the social hall. While usually on Zoom, we know everyone is not entirely comfortable with that, so come to the meeting and bring your laptop or smartphone, and we'll walk you through how to connect one-on-one. We'll put out a reminder. Hope to see you there. Thank you.
And next, we have Lori. I heard that.
As most of you are aware, Laura Lehrman and myself are the new the two new people sharing the co-presidency of our fellowship board. Today I'm speaking from your new board. We serve at your pleasure and can be identified with these fancy yellow designs here. We want you to know that we're serious about working together as a community and serious about our community being respectful and loving with each other. We invite you to attend any of our meetings, which are on the third Saturday of the month from 10 to 12, with the exception of executive sessions. If you wish to speak, please let us know the Monday prior to the meeting. We are scheduling quarterly congregational meetings. Our next meeting will be the third Sunday in June, and the main focus will be revamping our membership process. Details will be in the updates and the newsletter. Feel free to contact us at board@uufcc.org, which will reach all of the board members. Our intention is to respond within 72 hours. Thank you.
Okay, the lunch bunch is meeting at Bob Evans. Which Bob Evans?
Tammy Amy, right? The one on Tammy Amy Trail, let me give you the address.
Just off Gardner.
Yeah, there's two. Yeah. That's what I mean.
The one I have says 1050 L Joe Beaton Road.
Oh, that one. That's that one.
Well, what do you guys want? Which one do you want? I don't know the area, folks. You want the one by the mall? Yeah. By the mall.
Okay, does everybody know where the Bob Evans by the mall is?
Sort of whichever one.
Ask Nancy Weaver, she knows.
I just said go to the mall and circle around a few times.
Did you all get that? Okay, now we have an important announcement, and this is for Judy Fincher. You're invited to my book signing on Monday, April 29th from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Becky Garden Shop, 134 Cross Street in Punta Gorda. The name of the book is Journey Toward Wholeness. It's a semi-autobiographical novel about the lifelong struggle to emerge from early sexual childhood abuse with dignity and self-awareness. All are welcome. Thank you so much, Judy. Oh, and you can reach her at 703-795-8946. That's her phone number. Thank you, Judy. I think that's all the announcements I have. Okay. Sharon, closing words?
Closing words are from Barbara Kingsolver's 1995 book of essays. It was called High Tide in Tucson. Kingsolver writes, "In my own worst seasons, I've come back from the colorless world of despair by forcing myself to look hard and for a long time at a single glorious thing, a flame of red geranium outside my bedroom window. And then another, my daughter in a yellow dress. And another, the perfect outline of a full dark sphere behind the crescent moon. Until I learned to be in love with my life again. Like a stroke victim, retraining new parts of the brain to grasp lost skills, I have taught myself joy over and over again. May it be so."
Now I invite Mary Lou to come up and extinguish the chalice. Please join me in reciting the words in the order of service. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of hope, the fire of commitment, or the warmth of community. May those ideals shine in our lives and warm our hearts until we are together again. So be it. Our closing hymn is hymn number 146. We laugh. Oh, I'm sorry. 354. I'm sorry. And it's in the great hymnal.